I bled for this review. To be clear, no one asked me to review these controllers. Curiosity killed the cat, and these controllers scratched my hands. However, my ample time with the Logitech G F310 and the Logitech G F710 gave me plenty of opportunities to ponder the controller market and ask the all-important question, do these have a place in 2025? These are the Logitech G F310 and G F710 PC controllers, respectively. They released on September 3rd, 2010, and judging by the old Logitech logo that was phased out in 2015, it's been a while since these controllers got a refresh, assuming they got one at all, which makes it all the more surprising that these controllers are still being sold today at the eye-watering prices of $25 and $50 respectively. I'm not going to mince words. I cannot recommend these controllers at those prices. I'll go even further and say that the Black Friday prices that I got these for, $15 and $25, are still not cheap enough to justify buying these controllers. There are simply better options at equal or slightly higher price tiers. For completion's sake, let's go through my usual format. Briefly, the F310 and F710 are similar controllers. The F310 is a wired-only controller via an attached cable. It has no vibration. The F710 is a wireless-only controller via a 2.4 GHz dongle, and unlike the F310, the F710 has optional vibration that can be toggled via a button on the controller. There is also the F510, which is wired and has optional vibration, but I don't have it for review, and it seems like Logitech doesn't sell that one anymore. The F310 and F710 have PlayStation-style layouts with symmetrical analog sticks with fairly significant dead zones and no Hall effects. The controllers have compatibility with Windows PC and Chromebooks, apparently. The packaging is a sign of the times. Logitech claims that this packaging is certified carbon neutral, but is evidently not blood neutral, as the controllers were encased in this aggravating heat-sealed plastic packaging that literally cut my hand.
Hey, I did get scratched. Yeah, it's bullshit. What the Logitech? Carbon neutral. This thing is classified as carbon. This ain't carbon neutral, I'll tell you that much.
If this wasn't an indication for me to not continue with these controllers, I don't know what was. With the F310, you get the controller and a manual. Its cable length is 6 feet or 2 meters. With the F710, you get the controller, the 2.4 GHz dongle, 2 AA batteries, and a 5-foot USB A-to-A extender. The F710's only connectivity option is with its dongle. There are no Bluetooth or wired options here. Conveniently, the F710's battery compartment has a place to house the dongle when you're not using the controller. Very few controllers have a place to store the dongle, so I commend the F710 in earnest for having such an option. Both controllers have pretty similar button placements, though there are a couple differences. Aside from the usual start, select, and home buttons, both controllers also have a mode button, which swaps the D-pad and left analog stick. Personally, I didn't find much use from this, but I imagine this is pretty nice for retro games. Your mileage may vary. The controllers also have a switch to swap between X input and direct input modes. Most of the time you'll be in X input mode, but you might need direct input for older games or more niche use cases. It's nice to see a physical switch nonetheless. The F710 also has a vibration button to toggle vibration off and on, but the vibration was pretty paltry anyways. More on that later. Unfortunately, first impressions of these controllers were pretty terrible, and they didn't get any better through usage. The F310 and F710 are ergonomic nightmares for me. While the F310 is pretty light on its weight, the F710 is on the heavier side, coming in at a whopping 277 grams when the batteries are installed. Both controllers have these large grips that my smallish hands could barely get a grip on, and while the face buttons and analog sticks felt fine, the shoulder buttons and triggers were absolutely atrocious. All 4 of these buttons are inadequately sized, forcing your fingers to be in a specific area when you want to press them. And the triggers, they're the worst triggers I've ever used on a controller. Not only are the trigger buttons extremely small, but there's also so much resistance to these triggers that my fingers were crying in agony after a half-hour session of Forza Horizon 5. I tried wearing in the controllers, but it didn't make these triggers any easier to press. There is simply way too much friction in these triggers for me to consider them usable. Adding to the ergonomic nightmare, particularly with the F710, is the battery compartment. It sticks out like a sore thumb, making my fingers sore in the process. If you have bigger hands, it may not bother you, but it bothered me a lot. With regards to the buttons, I hated this D-pad. It's a flat circle that wobbles around, leaving behind an imprecise feeling that rivaled the Xbox 360 controllers of yore. If you value force feedback in your controller via vibration, then neither controller is for you. As I mentioned, the F310 wired has no vibration. While the F710 claims to have vibration, it was so weak that I wasn't even sure if it was working half the time. It might be good enough for your mom, but not much else. Let's briefly talk about software. Logitech offers two Windows software packages, the Logitech Gaming Software and the Logitech Connect utility. The Logitech Gaming Software, also known as the Logitech Profiler, allows for button remapping while the controllers are in direct input mode. You can also create game-specific macros that involve both controller and keyboard keys. Visually, it's a little outdated, but it's perfectly functional. The other piece of software, the Logitech Connect utility, is only for the F710 wireless and verifies that the F710 has connected to your computer properly. In lieu of measuring battery life of the F710, I measured my tolerance. I was able to get 13 hours out of it before I got sick of using this controller. For completion's sake, here are the input lag numbers for the F310 and F710. They're not terrible controllers by any means if all you care about are these numbers, but these controllers are so wildly uncomfortable that the input lag measurements didn't really matter to my conclusion. Speaking of conclusion, let's transition to one. Regarding the F710 wireless controller, if you're truly, and I mean truly, desperate for a wireless controller with a PlayStation-style analog stick layout, then this controller might be for you. But if you don't care about the layout of the analog sticks, then I cannot recommend this controller under any circumstances. This controller is too outdated, and consequently there are simply much better options at the $30 to $40 price range. The F310 wired controller is where I think a more nuanced discussion can be had. To be clear, I don't recommend this controller at its normal $25 price point, but at the $15 price that I got it at, the F310 might have a chance. Let me explain. Gaming is getting more and more expensive, and your budgets are getting smaller and smaller. Controllers especially have been gradually going up in price despite more competition entering the mix, and the big orange man isn't helping matters. If you're like the guy I was in middle and high school, $30 was a lot of money, and even $15 was pushing it. If you're on a strict $15 budget, and I'm not shaming you if you are, but if you are on this strict of a budget and cannot go above that, then the F310 would be the best $15 controller you can get. With that said, I would strongly recommend, if you can, save up an extra $5 or $10. I realize that it's a significant increase to the budget, but that extra $5 or $10 unlocks so many more options that are much better than the F310, such as the Anbernic RGP01 and 8-bit Duo Ultimate 2C, just to name a couple. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say about these controllers. If this video was informative to you, please feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.